Good afternoon. The first item of business is portfolio questions. Question on finance, economy and fair work. First question, Murdo Fraser. Mr Fraser, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on the establishment of a Scottish Stock Exchange.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
The Scottish Government recognises that stock exchanges can be an alternative platform for some companies seeking to raise capital for growth investment, while also offering investors the opportunity to contribute to the development of listed companies. The establishment of any stock exchange in Scotland is a commercial matter for those seeking to do so.
Murdo Fraser.
Can I thank the Minister for his response? The Scottish Ministers, including Mr Hepburn, were very enthusiastic in their support for the Project Heather scheme to create a new Scottish Stock Exchange, and Scottish Enterprise pledged £750,000 of public money. We now learn from press reports that Project Heather's offices lie empty, staff have gone unpaid, and debts have been run up, totalling nearly £1 million. So what support will the Scottish Government give to those who face losing their jobs as a result of this project failing? And given that there was widespread...
I think that's fine, thank you. Minister?
Well, what I will, of course, say is it wasn't just myself that was supportive of the establishment of Stock Exchange. We know that Dean Lockhart, who is, of course, in Mr Fraser's party, was also expressing support. Tavish Scott, when he was an MSP, hosted a reception at the Parliament. I don't criticise him for doing that. When we have an opportunity like this, I'm sure Mr Fraser would have expected us to embrace it. In terms of the money that Scottish Enterprise had offered, none of that has been drawn down. I think it's important to place that in the record. But he is quite right. If this is a project that does not succeed and people end up out of work, then it is incumbent on us to do all we can to support those individuals. And Mr Fraser and the rest of the Chamber can be assured we will, of course, do that.
Neil Findlay.
Businesses in Scotland have to have confidence in any stock exchange, whether that be a Scottish stock exchange or a UK stock exchange. And due diligence is a very important factor in the financial sector. I wonder if the Minister could advise us what due diligence was done in the appointment of the new chair of the Scottish National Investment Bank.
Nothing to do with
I think that's somewhat wide of the mark. I was at FMQs when it was brought up as an issue. Minister, it's a matter for you, but my ruling is that it's wide of the original question.
I'm sure Mr Findlay can be assured that due diligence is always undertaken, and he will get a response in due course.
Thank you very much. Question 2, Willie Coffey.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government how it is supporting small businesses in the Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley constituency to prepare for a potentially damaging Brexit and to develop economic links with Ireland and the rest of the European Union.
Minister Kate Forbes.
Well, we're supporting small business through the Prepare for Brexit campaign, which offers advice for companies concerned with the impact on their business through exiting the EU. And the Republic of Ireland Taoiseach Simon Coveney visited Edinburgh on the 13th of November, participating in a bilateral meeting with the First Minister and Ms Hislop and Mr Russell. And that successful visit marks the start of the bilateral review process and an opportunity to continue building a positive relationship with our strong European ally, which is a priority market for our export growth plan.
Willie Coffey.
Can I thank the Minister for that answer? A local business forum I attended in Kilmarnock last week was very well attended, and many small businesses were keen to hear what support arrangements there might be in place to assist them not only to continue trading with the European Union partners, but to enhance the relationships where possible. Can the Minister assure me and my local business constituents that the Scottish Government will take every opportunity to further develop closer economic and social links with Ireland and the rest of the EU post any Brexit situation, should that occur?
Minister.
Committed to that relationship to provide opportunities to Mr Coffey's constituents, and we'll build on the good work that we're already doing. In 1819, our team in Dublin helped land 6 inward investment projects from Ireland and hosted 6 trade missions from Scotland, which supported over 60 Scottish companies into the Irish market. So our relationship with Ireland is a priority. We will continue to build on it to ensure that small businesses and medium-sized businesses have that opportunity into the Irish market.
Question 3, Liam Kerr.
Sir, to ask the Scottish Government whether it will retract its statements on youth unemployment in light of the UK Statistics Authority's recent comments on its use of the Labour Force Survey.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
No, the Scottish Government's statements on youth unemployment are based on official statistics routinely published by the Office for National Statistics, which remain the latest available official estimate of youth unemployment figures in Scotland. Both the Scottish and UK governments regularly refer to results from the ONS Labour Force Survey as the most frequently available source of labour market data. Scottish Government statisticians will continue to work with the ONS to discuss the handling of future publications of youth unemployment statistics and the use of the Labour Force Survey. It's crucial that decisions on the use of statistics are taken by professional statisticians, so this is the decision for Scotland's Chief Statistician, who will reflect on comments made.
Liam Kerr.
For the answer, but as he well knows, no one is criticising the national statistics themselves. They are not the issue here. The issue is that the Scottish Government selectively cherry-picked a misleading number based on far too low a sample size to be reliable. A number of journalists have said that, Fraser of Allender have said that, the Statistics Authority have said that. Is the SNP government so arrogant it can't even hold its hands up and admit it made a mistake?
Minister.
Well, I would go back to the point I've just made. What is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. These aren't statistics that we use alone. The UK government comment on them on a monthly basis. And let me say to Mr Kerr, they're not just utilised by the Scottish Government and the UK Government. If Mr Kerr does not want the Scottish Government to utilise these statistics, I look forward to the same standard being held up by his party when they routinely use the labour force statistics selectively as well to do down the labour market as they do on a regular basis. I've seen Murdo Fraser, Alistair Jack and David Mundell doing that on a frequent basis. So if he doesn't want us to use them, then I hope he won't be using them in future as well.
Question 4, Emma Harper.
To ask the Scottish Government what the impact will be on Dumfries and Galloway Council of the delay to the Scottish budget because of the general election.
Cabinet Secretary.
The lack of any certainty on timing of the UK budget for 2020-21 means that we are continuing to manage an uncertain and challenging situation which has imposed delay in our plans for the Scottish budget. This impacts on all local government along with other public bodies. I understand that. So we continue to work with the Finance and Constitution Committee and the Scottish Fiscal Commission to determine the best approach in these circumstances, ensure that we're in a position to introduce the Scottish budget for 2020-21 at the earliest practical opportunity, and it will keep our local government partners and others up to date as that work develops.
Emma Harper.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. The delay to the budget is causing much frustration and concern across government, local authorities and the third sector. Can the Cabinet Secretary therefore outline whether any funding shortfalls are expected in terms of government funding to the Scottish Public Services, including to the third sector organisations?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I think, again, it highlights the reason that the UK Government, once elected, should move to a budget-setting process as quickly as possible, for the reason that we have political understanding in this chamber around how it's impacting on devolved administrations and not least here in Scotland. So we are concerned about that. We are engaging with local government. I've just come from a meeting with COSLA actually on this and other matters. And I want to give as much certainty as quickly as possible. That said, specifically the question was around local government support, including those to third sector organisations. I know my communities colleague, Aileen Campbell, is engaging with the third sector to try and give further reassurance around this. But fundamentally, it's for the UK Government to proceed swiftly with their budget. Therefore, I have written to both the current Chancellor and the prospective Chancellor to impress upon them the need to move to a budget as quickly as possible.
Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I'm sure the Cabinet Secretary would be happy to acknowledge that the reason we do not have a UK Government budget is we have a general election which, of course, his party was calling for.
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, we are where we are. I'm clearly not calling for a UK budget before the 12th of December. I'm simply calling for one after the 12th of December as quickly as possible. And the sooner that happens, the better, because that will give more time for me to present the Scottish budget, look at the numbers therein, then we can have an argument about the numbers, but then at least get to the timescales and allow as much scrutiny as possible for the Scottish Parliament. So we are where we are. We're waiting on the UK Government to be elected. We'll all have our own preferences as to what we want that to look like and how Scotland features within that. But any UK Government, if they respect devolution and they want to assure the orderly delivery of public services and tax setting in Scotland, should move to proceed with a budget and information sharing as quickly and as sensibly as possible.
Question 5, Daniel Johnson.
To ask the Scottish Government what actions it is taking to prevent assaults on retail workers.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
Retail workers play an important role in our communities, and it is right that they have legal protection as they go about their work. In 2019-20, the Scottish Government has provided financial support to the Scottish Business Resilience Centre, which, amongst other matters, provides support to businesses in helping keep their staff safe while at work. Anyone assaulting a retail worker can be dealt with under existing criminal offences, with penalties all the way up to life imprisonment available to the court.
Daniel Johnson.
For the answer and remind the Chamber that I'm a member of the Shop Workers Union, USDAW. In November, they held their annual Freedom from Fear Week and released their latest survey results of over 1,000 retail staff, which showed a 25% increase year on year on assaults on retail workers. Shockingly, it also revealed that there are 15 assaults of retail workers that occur every single day in Scotland. So given that, and the fact that specific protections exist for particular workers such as border staff, emergency workers and indeed police, is it not time to consider whether the law needs to change to protect shop workers also? And would he also agree that people, if they are concerned about these issues, should take part in the consultation exercise that the Economy and Fair Work Committee has just launched with regard to my bill?
Minister.
Of course, where any prospective legislation is before this Parliament, then it's incumbent on people to take part in the consultation, and just like Dan Johnson, I would encourage people to take part in that process. In relation to his specific bill, we will, of course, consider any proposition for legislation advanced in good faith. I do believe Mr Johnson is advancing this bill on that basis, but we will, of course, need to consider the specific provisions. I know that the Cabinet Secretary for Justice, who will lead on this, is doing so just now, and the Scottish Government will respond in due course.
Question 6, Alistair Allen.
To ask the Scottish Government what measures it can take to better enhance the consumer protection for vulnerable people facing aggressive sales at the doorstep.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
Consumer protection remains reserved to the UK Government, but through advice and advocacy, we are doing all we can to support consumers. The Scottish Government is working with a number of partners to produce a scams prevention strategy, which will help all consumers with practical steps to take to reduce the harm and detriment that aggressive sales techniques can cause.
Alistair Allen.
I thank the Minister for his reply. I've had several instances brought to me in my constituency where elderly people have been told by a company that they must sign up for insulation under the UK Government's ECO scheme, including one instance where a householder was actually told they would be breaking the law if they did not. I've also seen numerous houses left in a terrible and in some cases highly dangerous condition. I appreciate this is not a Scottish Government scheme, but what can be done to rein in this cynical behaviour towards elderly and often vulnerable people?
Minister.
Well, I think we're all aware of, from our own constituency caseload, of too many instances where there have been rogue traders operating under this scheme and some of the predecessor schemes. Of course, some of the activity can constitute a criminal matter that could be subject to investigation and potentially prosecution. But there is, I believe, a clear need for the UK Government to improve consumer protections as part of their energy efficiency schemes. That's something we've raised with them. I know that from January they do intend to require all business participating in the ECO scheme to be registered with Trustmark, the UK Government-sponsored Trusted Trader scheme. I welcome to that as some response, but in common with Citizen Advice Scotland and others, we've told UK ministers believe these changes come a little too late and don't do quite enough to protect vulnerable consumers. So we continue to work with stakeholders to direct householders to our Home Energy Scotland service that provides free, expert and impartial advice to anyone who wants to understand how they can heat their home more effectively and efficiently.
Question 7, Peter Chapman.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what the level of investment in the North East has been as part of the Scottish Growth Scheme.
Cabinet Secretary.
The information requested is not available by the designated area requested. The Scottish Growth Scheme support is available to companies throughout Scotland. And to the 31st of October 2019, £165 million of investment has been unlocked for 277 businesses.
Peter Chapman.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer, but I'd remind him that the Growth Scheme was supposed to be a £500 million fund over 3 years. But with just months to go, the Government's own figures show that as of the end of September, my figure is 160 million has been invested, and under 30 million of that has come from the Scottish Government themselves. So what plans does the Government have to give the North East the investment it needs and deserves before the scheme ends?
Cabinet Secretary.
Of course, the Scottish Government has invested and will continue to invest massively in the north east of Scotland, whether that's in infrastructure, whether that's in business support or support for our public services generally. In relation specifically, and I've gone through this forensically at the Economy Committee, one of the issues around the investment propositions for the Scottish Growth Scheme in terms of co-investment was investors' willingness and desire to invest at the time. And one of the reasons that we've heard in some investments been pulled or not seen through to the end was Brexit uncertainty. And whose fault is that? It's the Tories that have got us in this position in terms of Brexit uncertainty, and indeed a no-deal Brexit would be calamitous for Scotland's economy. And do you know what part of Scotland would be worst affected through Brexit? It's actually the North East and the city of Aberdeen particularly. So if you want to talk about business support, we are doing many actions, and I'll announce further actions through the Economic Action Plan, but the biggest threat to business and prosperity in Scotland and in the North East of Scotland right now is Brexit, brought upon us by the Conservative Party, who are reckless, incompetent and financially incapable.
And question 8 has not been lodged, so that concludes portfolio questions on finance, economy and fair work. There will be a short suspension before we move on to the next item of business.